Have you ever dated a guy and had this intuitive thought in the back of your mind asking yourself, is this guy using me or is he really into me? Well, if you've ever had that thought ever, keep watching this video because I'm going to go through the 5 signs to tell if he's using you or if he's really into you. And by the way, welcome to Attract Great Guys. This channel is a little bit different as it focuses on helping ambitious women, which are smart, driven women that have really high standards and want the best out of life, aren't willing to settle, to attract high-quality men for a lifelong committed relationship. Now, I define a high-quality man as someone who matches your intellect and values and lifelong desires and also wants that committed relationship. So welcome to my channel. Please hit the red subscribe button beneath this video so you can get notified of all of my upcoming videos that cover attraction and dating strategies for ambitious women. I am Jason Silver, the dating coach for ambitious women, and welcome to today's video where I'm going to jump into what you really should be looking out for when you begin any relationships as a potential sign that he might be using you. Number 1, and this is one of the most important signs, is if he's introducing you to his social circle or not. This is something that's really important to be aware of. A man can pretend to be anyone to you. When you first meet him, he can be playing a character. You really don't know who he truly is until you see him in front of other people. It's much more difficult for him to act like a chameleon around other people that he has a previous relationship with. Now, a real high-quality man, someone that's looking for a committed relationship, wants to introduce you to his social circle. He should want to introduce you to other people that he values in his own life. I remember the first date that I went on with my wife. We actually walked along Lake Michigan in Chicago, and I ran into 2 different people that I knew. One was this woman, Rashida, who I did improv theater with, and we had a great interaction. It was really nice to see her. And the other was Shiva Singh, and he was my yoga instructor. He taught me in my when I went through a certified teacher training. And again, really great to see him. And I introduced my wife Kathy to both of these people. It was major social proof for me, right? And at the end of that date, even though she had met 2 different people that had a really good interaction with me, I asked to drive her home. It was a nice day out, and she politely declined. Now, looking back, that actually made me respect her a little bit more because she still didn't fully trust me. She still wanted to get to know me more before she got in a car ride with me. I'm not sure if that's actually what her intentions were. She might just have wanted to walk home because it was nice out. But for me, I really valued her. I valued the boundaries that she had. Now, I actually, within the first month, brought her to 2 different concerts. I'm friends with a lot of musicians, so I introduced her to different friends of mine in the music industry. And by the 3rd month that we were dating, I knew that there was something really special about her, and I flew her, and we flew together to California to meet my grandparents because I wanted her to meet them before they passed away in case this was someone that I wanted to marry. Which I was pretty sure at that point I did. However, it's important to look at my progression. I wanted to introduce this woman to my social circle. I wanted to get her more involved in my life because I was looking for a committed relationship, and I knew that I wanted her to be a part of it. The right man, a high-quality man, is going to want that as well. Now, there's lots of benefits for you to meet his social circle. You're able to see if he's congruent, if he acts the same way with you as he does with other people. You're able to see who he surrounds himself with. There's this saying that you are an average of the 5 people that you surround yourself with. So that's something that's really important to consider. And it shouldn't be that difficult for you to transition from just hanging out or spending time one-on-one to his social circle. If he doesn't offer to introduce you, well, I would encourage you to ask. All you have to do is say, you know, I'd love to meet some of your friends. I'd love to meet some of the people that you spend time with. Now, there's 2 ways that a man can take this, right? One way is that he could feel like it's too much, and he could feel like it's too pushy. Now, if a man doesn't want to introduce you to his social circle, that's a little bit of a red flag. What is he really looking for? What does he really want? Why is he hesitant? So if you bring it up and he rejects that idea, well, that's something to be aware of. It's good that you brought it up. Gives you a little bit more perspective on him or the relationship. Or the other thing that can happen is that he agrees, is that he would actually be flattered. Wow, this woman is taking an interest in me. See, the key in when you approach him is not to do it from a place of suspicion. Oh, I wonder if this guy's a scam artist. It's to come from a place of genuine curiosity. I want to get to know this gentleman more. He seems interesting. I'm enjoying spending time with him. I'd like to get to know him a little bit more by finding out who he spends time with, who he spends his time with, what are some of the activities he does with these people. So by you showing a genuine interest in him, that should be attractive to a high-quality man who's looking for a committed relationship. So don't be afraid to ask a man to meet his friends. Now, the second sign to look out for in a relationship to see if a man might be using you is if every interaction you have with him leads to some form of sexual intimacy. No matter what you do, what date you go out, wherever you go out on a date with him, if it always ends or begins or during, if there's always physical intimacy, you have to ask yourself, well, what's really going on in this relationship? What's he really getting out of all of our interactions? Now listen, I am not bashing sexual intimacy, especially if two people, if you want that just as much as he does. However, a relationship is not just physical contact. If you're looking for a lifelong committed relationship, which this video is really designed for, then a relationship is so much more than just physical contact. So if you're not varying your activities and going out sometimes and doing things that don't involve that, then you have to ask yourself, well, what does he really value in your relationship? So if you find that this is a consistent pattern, what you may want to do is ask to go to different events or dates that would make it really hard to get physically intimate. So maybe ask him to meet you for lunch somewhere and then have plans right after lunch to go to, so you can't isolate. And that's really what you need to look out for, is if every interaction somehow ends or there's periods of isolation where it's just you and him and then there's physical intimacy, try to find ways where you're not isolated, where you're in public. Maybe you meet for coffee or breakfast before work. Maybe you meet for lunch at some point during the day. Maybe you do a social activity where, like I said, you have somewhere to be afterwards. And if you find that maybe he's declining those invitations or somehow is unavailable, and you're finding that you're only meeting up with him when there's some sort of physical intimacy, well, I would start to question how deep are you really going in your relationship? How varied are your experiences? And what are his real motives? It's just something to be aware of. This isn't definitive, but this is definitely one of the signs that should give you a little bit more perspective and information on your relationship. Now, the third sign that he may be using you, if every interaction or date that you go on is really, really convenient for him. Meaning, if every date is scheduled around his availability, around the location that is easy for him to get to. If you find yourself going out of your way to accommodate him and his schedule, him and his location, then that might be a little bit of a red flag. It's really something to consider. And if you find this happening consistently, what you can do is you can set a little bit of a boundary. And you can say, hey, can you meet me here? Or can you compromise here? Because And listen, at the end of the day, you should want to make this relationship convenient for him. You should really want to make it convenient. Why? Well, that shows that you're considerate. That shows that you're being a considerate partner if you want convenience for your partner. However, relationships work both ways, and that consideration needs to work both ways. So just as you're trying to accommodate him, you should also want a partner who would want to accommodate you. And if you're finding that you're maybe offering dates or activities that he's unwilling to accommodate or compromise on, that is a red flag that this might just be a relationship of convenience, and he might not be as committed as you think, and he might be using you just due to convenience. It's just a thought, and you can ask yourself, what's really going on here? What is he really prioritizing over this relationship? What does he really value? Because would it take extra time to accommodate you? The best indicator of what we value is what we spend our time on. So it's good to ask the question, what does he really value? What is he willing to do? Is he really being kind and considerate? That's number 3. Now, the fourth sign that he might be using you is if he is incongruent. Now, what is congruence? Congruence is basically saying what you do and doing what you say. It's being consistent in your actions. So, for example, if a guy tells you, he really loves the beach and went on to all of these great places in Venezuela or Brazil, and then you go to the beach and he can't stand the sun, there's a little bit of a incongruence there, right? Just like a little bit of a red flag. And early on in a relationship, you're going to want to ask a lot of questions and watch his actions and see, the stories he told me, do they change over time? Do his preferences change over time? Does anything not fully add up? And we need to really be aware and thoughtful of the things someone says and consider them on an ongoing basis. I remember, for me, I might have mentioned this in previous videos, when I was dating, I was looking for a really kind, sweet, good-hearted person. And when I met my wife, the one thing that I really noticed is she was one of the kindest, gentlest, most just loving souls I had ever met in my entire life. And I was a little bit suspicious. It was a little bit of a red flag for me because she was so sweet, almost like she was putting on a show. And that is why you want to look for congruence, by the way, because if you find that there's incongruence, there's a good chance that a man is maybe changing himself to be more attractive to you in certain situations. And that's just kind of dishonest, maybe lying a little bit. So I remember thinking that of my wife, that she was maybe lying. She couldn't be this sweet. So what I did, and this is a great example of what you can do to look for and to root out incongruence, is I just started paying really, really close attention. Who did she surround herself with? I looked at her social circle. Are these really sweet, kind people? I asked them questions. One thing that was really funny is I noticed that my wife wasn't really a yeller. She wasn't really aggressive. So almost jokingly, I asked her friends, I said, when was the last time you heard Kathy yell at someone? And so I was bringing it up as a joke, and it didn't really seem like I was trying to root out information or be suspicious. It was just kind of a funny question. And her friends laughed that she's not really a yeller. She's just very sweet. However, they actually did tell me one time that she yelled at someone, but he certainly deserved it. And she does have a backbone there. But it's important to look for incongruence. And if you find areas, there's ways to root out incongruence by asking interesting questions. So for my wife, I wanted to know, okay, is she really this kind? Is she really this sweet and gentle and calm? So I think I asked her weird questions. I'm trying to think. I asked her, and I looked at how she drove. Was she a road rager? Did she need to cut in front of people? I asked her questions like, who do you dislike? That would kind of give me some examples of what her motives are in disliking people. Who is she really mad at? When was the last time she yelled at someone? These were the types of questions I asked, more from a curiosity to get to know her. She didn't really think that I assumed she wasn't that sweet. She just thought I was asking her interesting questions about herself to try to get to know her more, which I was. I mean, that's the truth. But I was really trying to root out incongruence. And after about 3 months, I determined that she was actually really sweet, and that's when I made the decision that I think I really wanted to marry her. I think it was like around 3.5 months. So really looking for incongruence is going to be one of the best ways that you can determine a man's real character. And the fifth sign to know if a man may be using you is if your friends don't have a good feeling about him. This is really important. If you trust your friends, if you've got a good social circle, listen, we are emotional beings. We don't always make decisions based on logic, and if we're in a relationship, it's very, very hard to have an honest perspective. So something to consider is if the people that care about you, around you, are suspicious or have questions or have a bad feeling, you really have to start to look at it. Now, this is not definitive, right? You can't rely completely on other people because they are emotional as well. However, if they are getting bad feelings, I would start to ask them questions and really try to understand what specifically is making them feel this way. Don't just, ignore it and say, they're just jealous or whatever, there's some other stuff going on. Really try to root out and understand what it is. And then what you can do after you really understand what it is that they're suspicious about, now it's time for you to investigate. Now it's time for you to look for congruence or incongruence that is true or not. Go on a fact-finding mission. You don't have to come from a place of suspicion. Come from a place of genuine curiosity, of trying to learn more about your partner. Because in the beginning of any relationship, that's really what we're doing at our core. We're trying to learn more about them. And if you don't trust your friends, if you feel like they're just not giving you great feedback or advice, then what are you doing? Why are you surrounding yourself with people that you don't even trust? I would encourage you at that point to really start looking for a new crew of individuals around you that you do trust their opinion, because it's so important in life to get outside perspectives from those that we care about and those who care about us. Now, these 5 signs are some of the best ways for you to figure out if a man is using you or not. So even if you're not in a relationship, feel free to refer back to this video as a resource guide for you as you're entering into any relationship. And if you like this video, please hit the thumbs up button just beneath the video and subscribe to my channel if you are an ambitious woman looking for a high quality man for a committed relationship, so you can be notified of all of my upcoming weekly trainings. Thank you so much for watching, and good luck and take good care.